Hey, Tommy, you know that Chevy builds a police Tahoe?
Yeah, they sure do, and they also build a police version of the Silverado, and they've been one of the leading producers of law enforcement vehicles over the decades.
Well, now there is a new police car in the Chevy fleet. What is that?
Well, we're looking at the police version of the Chevrolet Blazer EV.
The PPV EV. That's a lot of alliteration, and that stands for Police Pursuit Vehicle, and it's the first all-electric police car from General Motors. Now, Tesla has been building cars, and police departments have been using them as police cars, but this is the first specifically General Motors police-built car. So in this video, we're going to tell you all about it. So when you see it in your taillights, when you see it in your rearview mirror, you know what to look for.
Well, and this is not the first time we've seen an electric vehicle in a police application. As you mentioned, various agencies throughout the country are now adopting Teslas. For example, Boulder has a Model Y police vehicle. I know, for example, New York has been using Mach-E police vehicles as well. But this is a purpose-built police package on the upcoming Blazer EV. So we're going to tell you all of the specs and facts and what makes it special.
All right, well, let's start with what it's based on.
Well, it's based on the Blazer EV, which is a brand new crossover electric from Chevrolet, which is coming to market shortly, but it's been upgraded in some ways for police use and has some fittings and attachments that make it better for police use. So the horsepower is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're looking at 557 horsepower and 648 pound-foot of torque, which is going to make it pretty quick.
Yeah, based on the SS retail model. But let's talk about some of the big upgrades. So it's got skid plates for driving over curbs and rough terrain, right? It's got police-rated steel wheels. It's a 20-inch steel wheel, which is out of this world. It also has additional emergency equipment support, lights, sirens, etc. Now, a lot of the times, Dad, how a police vehicle works is they don't leave the factory equipped with the sirens and the push bars and the lights, but they come with packages to prep upfitters so that they can add those fairly easily.
Yeah, and it does a little bit of, I like this in quotes, light-duty towing, which is Class 1 hitch and 1,000 pounds of towing capability.
But if you need to tow like around one of those little radar signs, that tells you your speed, potentially you'd be able to do something like that as well.
Or if you need to mount a police bike on the back, off the hitch, you can do that as well. Now, here's the thing about police cars, right, Tommy? We just bought one, and what we found out that's important about police cars is how much time they spend idling. Basically, if you're in a traditional internal combustion engine police car, you got to leave it running all the time, because if you need to get to an accident or an emergency, you can't be risking the fact that it won't start. So idle time is very important.
And more importantly too, right, all of the communication systems and computer systems in the car need electricity to run. So yeah, you got to keep the engine running so the battery doesn't go flat. That's another key feature.
Yeah, so an electric police car would be perfect for that, because obviously when it's idling, it's not burning gas. So Chevy says, depending on how you're using it, the new Chevy Blazer EV PPV will get anywhere from 20 to 30 hours of idle time.
And I've heard that some law enforcement agencies, depending on the car they're currently using, can use up to a quarter of tank to a third of a tank of gas every single day just based on idle time. So there's a huge advantage to going electric in the situation.
Yeah, now the consumer version of the Blazer will get 290 miles of range, but Chevy says that this new police version will be based on the Ultium platform. It's going to have a 105 kilowatt hour battery, and they're saying about 250 miles of range when you're using the lights, when you're using the computers, and when you're using all the accessories that police cars have.
Yeah, that's right. Now let's talk a little bit about that range number, right? Because people are going to say, well, that's not a lot of range. What happens if they get into a pursuit? Well, I would imagine that most pursuits don't typically last a couple hundred miles. That's probably something that a police officer shouldn't be engaging in if it's a 200-mile pursuit anyways. And like you said, a lot of these cars spend most of their life on the side of the road idling or in front of buildings idling. And I actually think this is a perfect application for an electric car if there is a place for the agencies to recharge it.
Yeah, and now the big number, of course, and this is one that is not so big. It's going to have a top speed from the factory of 130 miles per hour, probably governed, which is okay, but I would think a police pursuit vehicle is probably going to need a little bit more top-end oomph. Now, what we're looking at, of course, is the Ultium platform, which means that it's going to have rather quick DC charging. GM says 190 kilowatts of DC fast charging, and of course, level 1, level 2 as well.
I would imagine that most agencies are not going to be DC charging these vehicles because that's a lot of time out of the field to spend sitting at a charger. But it is a potential. I mean, I could see these being driven in the day, charging at night, or being driven in night, charging in day. Now, some other specs which I think are important.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there, Tommy.
What?
I'm going to say charging at the donut shop.
There you go.
Sorry.
I mean, that 557 horsepower means that this is probably going to be the quickest police vehicle by a large margin that most folks are going to...
Certainly under 5 seconds.
Yeah, right. And
0 to 60.
Even the Caprice PPV that Chevrolet used to build with a 6-liter V8 will not hold a candle to this in terms of acceleration and outright 0 to 60. There's some other interesting things about this car. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, sure. The car, according to GM, will meet or exceed demands during the Michigan State Police annual vehicle testing.
Yep, that's a really cool, by the way, test procedure. There's an organization that actually tests the, Michigan State Police actually, they actually test
And then compare.
every vehicle that's available for police departments to look at the data. So they have handling tests, 0 to 60 braking, and it's a really rigorous set of tests. And that's kind of the industry standard to see how it performs.
Yeah, and of course, California does the same thing as well. And so I'm sure this is going to get, compared to internal combustion engine vehicles. Now, here's, I think, what I would say is the coolest feature, because oftentimes police vehicles are used as canine vehicles. Oftentimes they're used in pursuits where the officer has to run out of the vehicle to go chase after somebody. And GM has thought of that. So what they've given the police officer is a key fob, right, that is called a contactless key fob. So in other words, as long as the police officer is wearing the key fob, all they have to do is get in the car starts up, police officer drives it. Let's say they get to a pursuit situation where the bad guy starts running, they jump out of the car stays on, so the computer stays on, the air conditioning stays on, so if there's a dog in there, and they really never have to basically turn the car off or on. And the cool thing about this, Tommy, is that once the key fob is with the police officer, you can get in that car and you won't be able to drive it.
Now, the Chargers use a similar feature. It's called Secure Park on the Charger, where if you are in an instance where you need to leave the car idling as you do to keep the computers and communication devices running, there's a secret button you push to engage Secure Park, so it can't go into drive. But the Blazer PPV is going to do it all automatically based on the key fob, which is a really smart idea.
Yeah, and electronically, there's nothing you have to mechanically fiddle with.
Yep, there's also a larger cargo space because the false floor is done. So that's where agencies can put all their communication gear, which is very, very cool. And it gets a standard upfitter wiring harness similar to the Tahoe PPV. Now, the NC1 police package specifically for this car gives you vinyl flooring, police spec center console, because my computer's got to fit there, and the rear vinyl seat. And I also understand that these cars have different bolstering to make way for the belts that our law enforcement officers
and
use.
the bulletproof vest. And then there's also a 9C street appearance package, which brings in standard carpeting instead of production spec center console
and cloth rear seats.
Yeah.
So that's like if you're like a deputy or a detective, right? You're not going to be transporting maybe as many folks in the rear. That is an option as well. So they got a bunch of choices and a few options from the factory to tailor the Blazer to the needs of the officers.
Yeah, you can also delete, of course, the rear door handles. You could delete the rear locks that people can unlock. But here's something cool. You know how Stellantis vehicles and Chevy vehicles have those buttons behind the steering wheel?
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you play with the volume and you change the channels?
Sure.
Well, GM has thought of something clever. Here, those buttons can be used to either operate the sirens or they can be used as a click the talk button. So if you want to talk with, the dispatcher, all you have to do is hit that button in the back of the steering wheel, and you can do that automatically with built-in speakers in the roof of the vehicle, so that you don't have to go to a walkie-talkie situation.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of cool features that are agency specific. Now, the availability is first quarter of 2024, and we don't know pricing. Now, this is really going to determine the success of this vehicle. Is how does the pricing compare to its competitive gasoline-equipped vehicles?
You know what's really going to determine the success of this vehicle?
Right.
If they can build it. They've been having a really hard time building any of their Ultium platform vehicles, and that includes, of course, the Hummer EV, the Cadillac Lyriq, and now, of course, this car. So I don't know if it's a battery issue with GM, or if it's, they're building a factory, or if it's, a chip supply issue, but they have been very slow to roll out anything but basically the Bolt, and that's not built on the new Ultium platform. That's built on an older platform.
I think pricing financing is also going to be a huge
I agree,
determinant,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because I foresee this being an extremely expensive vehicle, just based on the fact it's based on a Blazer SS. So I think we're going to see some really expensive. Aren't they doing a lower powered one too? I heard they're doing a lower powered one. I have to double check that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that, so I do not know that answer. But if you guys know, you can let us know in the comments below. What I do know, Tommy, is that, for instance, the Silverado work truck, the EV, starts at about $70,000.
Yeah, for the civilian model. So
For the work truck.
Yeah, right. So I think that this is going to be easily 65,000+.
Now, do you think 250 miles of range and between 20 and 30 hours of idle time is enough for most police departments? Obviously, these cars are not traditionally used for road tripping, right? So you can charge it at, like you said, police station, or you could, stop at Electrify America and get up to 190 kilowatts, which is, relatively quick. You could probably fill that battery if it's empty up in about a half hour.
Yeah, I think that the idle time is great. I think that's going to be a huge benefit to agencies. I think the range is probably going to be okay, but once again, these agencies are going to need to equip charging stations at their home bases so that these vehicles can keep topped up. I think it's going to be a big expense for a lot of different counties and agencies.
So here's funny. I was watching the video that GM put out on this, and at the end of the video, they had a bunch of officer reactions. Keep in mind, these are not objective, of course.
Sure, right.
But you know what everybody was amazed by?
What's the acceleration?
Exactly.
Just
Just how quick it is. And let's face it, if you're in a Tesla Model 3 Performance, there is no police vehicle out there currently that's going to keep up with you if you floor it.
Yeah, but a radio will.
Yes, or a helicopter.
Yeah. So I don't know if acceleration is that important in the grand
watch
scheme of
those
things.
TikTok videos. Apparently, it is. It's all these bad perps decide that they're going to fake police officers thinking they're pulling over, and then they step on it and floor it, and you got this long police chase. So at least TikTok would have you believe.
Yeah, so that is a really cool feature about the EVs. Yeah, it's acceleration.
Yeah. And of course, it's all-wheel drive, so that also makes it good for places like Colorado where we get snow and potentially even a little bit of light off-roading. Well, there you have it, guys. Let us know what you think of the Chevy Blazer EV PPV in the comments below. And remember, check out alltfl.com for the latest and greatest in automotive news. See you guys next time.